Hello and welcome to this video where we'll come into file handling. And if you're on your data journey and learning to become, for example, data scientist, data engineer, or data analyst, or similar data roles, it's very important that you're able to work with files. So you can read a file, you can clean a file, and you can output to a new clean file. So that is really good and essential skills to have. So what we've learned in previous lectures about the strings, control sequences, etc., and error handling, all this comes in handy now when we're working with file handling. So you can see that most of the things we've learned before will be using it into this lecture now. So this will be really interesting. So see you in Visual Studio Code. So here I am in Visual Studio Code, and as you've seen, this is not really empty actually this time, because I have a data folder and I have a quotes.txt, and you can see this txt file, it's really ugly. So you can see there's a lot of spaces in between. It's hardly possible to read this, but there are a few quotes here, and we'll try to get and clean it as good as we can. And also you should work in a GitHub repository and make sure to commit and push all your codes. And if you already have a virtual environment, then you don't need to do these steps because this will overwrite your old one. And then we activate our virtual environment and then UV-pip install PyKernel, because I will install that one. And let's work now. Let's start with touch file handling.ipnv. Okay, and this one I will actually make it into two different files. So first I will have this Jupyter notebook so that we can work with it. And then I will show you how to work in a Python script. Because in a Python script, it's a little bit different when it comes to handling paths. So we need to use a different way to access this quotes.txt than in Jupyter notebook. Okay, so let's start with this file handling. File handling. Let's change to Python here. And I want to choose my virtual environment like this. I will close this one down. And okay, so in many cases, you might have seen, if you're searching it up, or maybe your LLM will tell you to use try except and then open the file and then close the file. That is a bad way to do it. Instead, you should use something called a whiff statement, which will handle the errors for you. So it will close the files for you when it's done. So starting with defining a data path equals to, I'll make an F string here, data path. So we go into our data path and then slash quotes.txt. Okay, so how does this work? In Jupyter Notebook, it's always like this, that you will be relative to where your file is. So file handling is sibling to data. And you can see that actually you may not be able to do this, but you need to install this in order to do it. 3 dots. So here we have file handling is sibling to data folder. And inside the data folder, we have a child called quotes.txt. So in order for us to reach this quotes.txt, we need to go into data and then slash quotes.txt. So this is the way to do it in Jupyter Notebook. You have relative path. So then you do whiff open A, comma, R to read as file. And then you do text equals file dot read. That is it. And then you can actually do print of your text. And it looks like this. And as you can see, it's a very ugly text. We can see there's a lot of spaces and there's a lot of new lines. If I just write out the text, I'll get the wrapper of it. And it looks more like this. You will see in the wrapper, there's a lot of \n, which gives the new lines when we print it out, right? So let's clean this up. So we need to clean away all the \n and leave one \n, right? So let's do some cleaning here. Clean up. And what type of strategy do we have? Basically, you need to inspect your txt file. And what you notice is that, there's some pranks there that has done a lot of different things to make this quite hard to clean, adding a lot of random noises in form of white spaces. And then what we need to do is that you see there's space before and after each quote. So we need to do some kind of remove leading and trailing white spaces. Like this. You need to remove excessive white spaces. And I also want to add quote numbers. So this is basically the strategy. So in order to do this, let's do this. With open, I want to put in my path, because I had it before, R to read it as file. Let's see if I can call it file read, and then we can open our next one. Or actually, we can start with this. File read. And then we will clean this. Let's see, as freed, yes, exactly. So for quote in fread, we can print quote. And as you can see, what happens here is that we read each quote. Like we read each line by doing this. And then for each line, what can we do? We can clean this quote. So we can do quote equals to quote dot strip. And I want to strip away, you can see I want to strip away the space. And you can see, the space has disappeared. I can strip away \n. And you can see, it disappears a \n. What happens if I strip one more \n, for example? And you can see nothing happens, okay? And we still get the space because of the print, right? So remove that one, it gives the same result. And now what I want to do is I want to remove all the excessive spaces. So for example, in order to do that, you could think maybe you want to do quote equals to quote dot replace, and you do one space toward, again, replace one space with nothing. What happens then? Then all the spaces disappear. That is not what we want. Replace two spaces. Yeah, but sometimes maybe we have one space, right? Replace three spaces. So we're not sure what we're doing. So what we need to do is we need to replace one or more spaces with one space. So in order to do that, we need to have a regular expression. So import re as regular expression. So what you do is that you do this re dot sub to substitute. And I want to substitute space and more spaces with plus, right? With one space, comma, quote is the thing that I want to replace. So I want to you need to put in the pattern and what you want to replace it with, and then the string. Okay, now you see that it has been replaced appropriately in a correct way. So now I've cleaned that one. And what else we can do? We can do like this. Now, when we have this one, I want to save this into another file. So in order to save it into another file, we do comma here, open. So we have with open path R for reading. And now I'm opening another file for writing. This I should put in data path. I should make a f string data path slash quotes clean.txt. And I place in write, W for write, as f write. Okay. So this means that we can do f read for reading the file, and then we clean this variable quote, right? And then we can write this. So what I want to do is I want to write each of this one into another file. So if, let's see, we do f write dot write f string, I can put in, for example, let's see, f string quote like this. What happens when I do this? I run this one, we see that we get the quotes clean. So if I look into this one, everything happens in the same line because I've cleaned away all the \n, right? So what to do is that we need to add \n here. And when I do, because I have W here, it will replace when each time I run it. If I want to append, I use A instead. Okay, I run this one and you can see my quotes. Now it's much better, but there's still some strange spacing here, right? So this strange spacing is basically nothing, right? So it's quotes like this. So it's an empty string, but there's a \new line. So what I do is that if quote not equals empty string, then we do this. Okay, so if I save this one, now you can see much better. Because there was some empty strings, and the empty strings, they still had \n. So then what I do is that I just don't add them. Or they had new lines, that's why we get 2 new lines for each empty string. So just I don't pick that in. And now I want to put in numbers. So what I can do is I equals 1. And then what I do here is that I plus equals 1. And I put in the number I here, I dots. Like this, run this one. And now you can see here are the quotes. And also if I would want, I could do like this. Here, famous quotes. \n. Let's see, fwrite.write. Okay, now how does it look? Yeah, famous quotes. Perfect. So this is a way to do it. And yeah, I have also in my lecture note, you can look into that yourself. But there I have also extracted authors so that you can clean it up even further. But I won't go into that in this video. Instead, I will go into a Python script now, file cleaning.py. So to access this one, we will go into something called paths now. So print, let's see what will happen here. So from pathlib, import path. So in order to get exactly relative to this path, you need to do something like this. Let's see, path equals to path under file. And if I type out path now, so I need to change here to my virtual environment. And then I run this one. And you can see this is what is typed out. So this is what is printed out. And you can see it's going into file cleaning.py because Dunder file is a special variable that is getting exactly this path to, it gives exactly this file here. And when you're using the path from pathlib, then you will get the exact path to this place. So this is the absolute path, but it's an absolute path to where this file is. So then we can work with it as a relative path. So if I want to have the parent, I can do parent, and I say run this one. And you can see now we go into file handling, because this is the parent of this file. I can go back more by doing parents of 1, for example. Then I go 0 and 1. So I go one step further. And for me, that should be Python. So you can see documents, demos, Python. But parent and parent 0 is the same. So I go back to parent. I clean this up. And you can see here, file handling. And then what I want is I want to go into data. So I do slash data. Then I go into this data folder. And then I can do slash. So I can call this data path or data directory maybe. Data directory. Print data directory. And I run this one. Let's see. Yeah, not this slash here. Run this one. And you can see we're inside of file handling / data. So if I want to read this quotes.txt here, I can do like this with open data directory / quotes as file. And then I can do file.read, and I can print this one, for example. And you can see, let's see, file, quotes.txt, txt, run this one, and you can see this is the quotes. And also we could do quotes cleaned and run that one. And you can see, that's the cleaned famous quotes. And basically you could just copy what we did in our lecture note and change it so that it works with a Python script. And the only thing you need to think of is using this pathlib and working with the relative path in this way. Otherwise, the path in Python works like this. When you're running in Visual Studio Code, when you run this one, it will actually look into where you are in the terminal to determine your path. So if you are in the right direction, place, then it will be able to read anyway if you're doing relative path. But this way is much more robust to do it. So I recommend you that you learn this way to do it in Python. Okay, so in this video, we've worked with file handling and starting with a Jupyter Notebook and then moving on to Python. We're gone into how to work with path. So that is very important, and I will come back to path and pathlib in many videos in the future. So that you will be very good at working with paths. And so I hope that you learned how to clean the data, read the file in a simple TXT file, clean it up, and then writing it to another text file. So thank you for watching this one. Make sure to commit and push your changes, and see you in the next video. Bye.